Welcome and thank you for joining me. If you look forward to seeing this video and would like to see more of them, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, share, and like to support my channel. Part 1 of Chiro messages from Constantine never translated before covered a brief history of Constantine's rule as Roman emperor and his epic vision of the Chi-Rho symbol in the sky with the message, "In this sign you will conquer." However, the original Greek message to Constantine was "In tikoi nika," meaning "with this conquer," while the Latin translation "In hoc signo binces" uses the word binces for conquer, which has the meaning more of defeat, win, or overcome. The Latin word conqueror means to seek out or acquire, thus changing the message to "In this sign you will seek." Part 1 also examined the association of the Chiro symbol to the mysterious Mithras religion and its famous bull-killing scene called the Teractony, as well as Mithras' connection to the demigod-turned-god Asclepius. Asclepius was the renowned father of medicine, who used omens, dreams, and medical astrology for his healing practices. To summarize Part 1, the Romans circa 300 AD evidently practiced a form of astrological New Age medicine. If you seek a more in-depth understanding of the topics presented in this video, I encourage you to watch Part 1. The Chi-Rho symbol was classically called Christos, a symbol used to mark important passages in the margins of a book. However, it appears the Christos symbol was altered into the Greek name Christos, or Christ in English. Constantine reportedly became a Christian after his vision of the Chi-Rho symbol in the sky. It is supposed to represent the first two letters of the name Christos. However, it became quite evident that Constantine's pagan worship continued throughout his life, for he left a legacy of hidden messages in the Chi-Rho symbol itself. There are many versions of the Chi-Rho symbol carved in stone, but the older representations display the two Greek letters Rho and Omega for R and O, that are followed by the Latin letters S and A. Although the Romans spoke Latin, the predominant language amongst the populace in Constantinople was Greek. One quiet day, while doing research, I gazed at an older stone-carved Chi-Rho symbol and noticed the letters going clockwise spelled the Latin word Rosa, or rose in English. At the top is the uppercase or capital Greek letter Rho for R, with a long stem that makes it look like the English letter P, and then going clockwise you encounter a smaller or lowercase Greek letter Omega for O. Following these two Greek letters are the two Latin letters S and A, and when combined they spell the word Rosa. To the Romans, the phrase sub rosa means under the roses and symbolizes secrets or acts done in secrecy. Constantine is telling you that there are secrets hidden in the Chi-Rho symbol. With this in mind, I began translating words and messages from the Chi-Rho symbol. For example, if the long stem on the Rho letter R represents the Latin lowercase letter L, the next words that appear are sol and solar, meaning sun and of the sun, from the Latin words sol and solus. One meaning of this message appears to be a reference to the Roman sun god Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. Intriguingly, the origin of the Greek and Latin alphabets is based on the Phoenician alphabet that spread throughout the Mediterranean by these seafaring merchant traders. In fact, the Greek alphabet was called Phoenicia Grammata, meaning Phoenician letters. As a result, some of my following translations will borrow two letters from the Phoenician alphabet. Ta is an X for T, and Tet or Teth is an X inside a circle for the combined letters TH. If the letter Ta for T is used, the word astro appears from the Chi-Rho symbol, which is Greek and Latin for star. And if you rearrange the letters of astro, it makes the anagram rotus, meaning wheels, as in the Zodiac wheel, and also means to rotate. The Latin verb rotus instructs you to rotate the whole Chi-Rho symbol while translating the messages. And in Part 1, the symbol was rotated 180 degrees clockwise. After this 180-degree rotation, the lowercase omega letter now turns into a lowercase m, and the uppercase A has grown horns because the letter A came from the image of the face and horns of a bull or ox. If the long stem from the letter Rho is a Latin capital letter I, the word Mithras appears. The association of the zodiac wheel to Mithras comes directly from the word Mithras. Each Greek letter has an associated numeric value, and if you add them together, the value of each letter in the word Mithras equals 360 for the degrees of the great circle of the zodiac wheel. As the translations unfold, the link of Mithras to astrology becomes quite obvious. A number of surviving Mithras bull-killing reliefs display the 12 zodiac signs to reinforce the connection of Mithras to the zodiac wheel. In order to understand the remaining Chiro messages, you must learn a few things about tropical Hellenistic astrology. This form of astrology, or the study of the stars, came from the word Hellenzean, which means to speak Greek. Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia, circa 330 BC, started the wheels of change. However, the Hellenistic period didn't officially begin until Alexander's death in 323 BC, and extends to the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony in 31 BC. This period is characterized by the spread of the Greek language and culture with its enlightening arts, sciences, and philosophies. Almost 600 years later, the Romans were still practicing Hellenistic astrology during Constantine's time, circa 300 AD. The zodiac wheel tracks the position of the celestial planets relative to the Earth to seek answers of our heavenly purpose in our earthly lives. The sun illuminates the Earth by day and casts reflective light to the moon by night. The Earth's traverse around the sun represents time and is divided into the 4 seasons of the year, and the moon represents the time in months, weeks, and days within the year. The anagram, or the rearranged letters of the Greek word Rosa, spells aura or auros, which means hours, season, year, or a period of time. If a silent H is added in front of aura while giving it a plural ending, it spells Ori, which represents the 4 goddesses of the seasons, and the daughters of Cronus, the god of time and harvest. The spring and fall equinoxes happen the moment a projected plane from the tilted Earth's equator crosses the exact center of the sun. At that time, the sun rises directly over the east-west horizon of the Earth. The summer and winter solstices are the yearly highest and lowest points of the sun, moving from the Tropic of Cancer down to the Tropic of Capricorn. Thus the origin of the name Tropical Hellenistic Astrology. The twice-yearly equinoxes and solstices mark the beginning of the seasons of the year and are the 4 basic divisions of the zodiac wheel. The 23.44-degree axial tilt of the Earth causes the seasons with the equinoxes marking equal day and night, and the winter solstice marking the shortest day and the longest night of the year, and the summer solstice marking the longest day and shortest night of the year, from any place other than the equator. Large stone structures, such as Stonehenge, were constructed as tools to identify these seasonal changes of the year. The sun and moon are luminaries, and the brightest planets visible by the naked eye are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Due to the sun's massive size, its large gravitational pull induces the wandering planets to travel their elliptic paths around the sun in the backdrop of the fixed stars as our reference to the natural order of change. Simultaneously, as the Earth revolves around the sun, the Earth rotates on its own tilted axis with the moon in tow, causing the sun to rise and set and the moon to wax and wane. Therefore, the zodiac wheel actually represents 2 wheels working together in sync in a cosmic and earthbound dance of motion joining heaven and earth. The outer wheel is the zodiac belt, and the inner wheel identifies the location of the planets and temples, or what's called houses. Therefore, Constantine's message of the Latin plural word rotus for wheels is correct. The motion of each wheel uses a different perspective to describe their interrelated roles. One is from the Earth orbiting the Sun, and the other is the rotation of the Earth on its axis. The reference point for all of the following astrological observations will be looking down from the North Star to Earth, because the axis of our tilted Earth always points to the North Star. Apparent motion of the Sun conveys that the stationary Sun does not orbit the Earth, but from our perspective on Earth, the Sun appears to orbit the Earth. The apparent motion of the Sun from this master observation point of the North Star makes the Sun and the slow-wandering planets appear to orbit counterclockwise on the horoscope charts. In Hellenistic astrology, both wheels are divided into 12 mathematical divisions of 30 degrees. The outer wheel displays the signs of the zodiac belt that are merely named by their nearby star constellations. The ecliptic, located in the center of the zodiac belt, defines the sun's journey along the outer 360-degree band of the great zodiac circle. The 12 zodiac signs are the division of the ecliptic. The sun's yearly apparent orbit around the earth on the ecliptic is approximately 1 degree per day, or more precisely 0.986, and travels through one zodiac sun sign approximately every month to complete its 365-day yearly passage. Roughly once every month, the sun travels through each of the following 12 signs: Aries the ram, Taurus the bull, Gemini the twins, Cancer the crab, Leo the lion, Virgo the virgin, Libra the scales, Scorpio the scorpion, Sagittarius the centaur, Capricorn the sea goat, Aquarius the water bearer, and Pisces the two fish. Characteristics of each sign are similar to the nature of its ruling animal, chimera, or entity, and each sign has an assigned ruling planet. A horoscope chart is constructed with the inner wheel representing 12 divisions of houses or temples, caused by the apparent primary clockwise daily rotation of the Earth on its axis, and the outside wheel represents the 12 divisions of the family of the celestial zodiac signs, caused by the secondary counterclockwise motion of the sun along the ecliptic. The inner wheel is divided into houses numbered 1 through 12. The primary clockwise motion of the sun through the houses represents our daily 24-hour observations of the sun rising in the east, culminating in the south at noon, setting in the west, and culminating in the north at midnight. The reference points of the inner wheel of the houses is the ascendant, the very moment the sun rises over the eastern horizon at the time of a person's birth, or at the time of a specific event. The ascendant is the fastest moving and most personalized point in the chart for a given time, date, and location, and profiles the most ancient point of reference on the chart where the horizon meets the ecliptic, where darkness surrenders to light. Your birth is the time that you shine your light into the world. The ascendant is the major component of the horoscope chart, leaving a snapshot of time of the positions, angles, and distances between the sun, moon, and planets. Abbreviations for the ascendant is either AS or ASC. Interestingly enough, another Chi-Rho symbol anagram related to Astro and Rotas is the Latin word ortus, meaning risen, birth, or sunrise. In a nutshell, the 12 zodiac signs to mark the path of the sun around the earth are considered divine and reflect certain characteristics of your persona. By contrast, the 12 houses divide the outer reaches of the sky to indicate the position of the planets in which sign. Houses are the earthbound realm, with each division influencing certain areas of your life, binding heaven and earth with the divine signs. In essence, the two different wheels working in sync from two different perspectives are binding heaven and earth, thus bridging the initial gap created by the original separation of heaven and earth caused by the void state of chaos that preceded creation. Every month, the secondary clockwise motion of the sun along the ecliptic moves the sun into a new sun sign, and every 2 hours of the day, the primary clockwise motion from the rotation of the earth moves the sun over the eastern horizons into a new ascendant or rising sign. So the question is, how can the primary motion of the houses be clockwise when the sun along the ecliptic and the earth's rotation both move counterclockwise? Motion of the sun along the ecliptic is extremely slow compared to the fast-spinning motion of the earth, making the zodiac belt appear to be moving clockwise. Every 2 hours, the ascendant shifts down to the next house due to the earth's rotation, but the horizon at sunrise is always due east. This is the true meaning of rising sign, or the ascendant. Watch the signs move up clockwise in 2-hour intervals. In Hellenistic astrology, the distinction between signs and houses is vague, because the houses are the temples of the gods that rule the celestial signs and are the dwelling place of the planets. The Hellenistic whole sign house system always positions the first house at 0 degrees cusp with the ascendant somewhere in the first house. The ascendant then identifies the horizon within the first house. Now that you learned more than you ever wanted to know about Hellenistic astrology, let's get back to the translation of the Chi-Rho symbol. Although the many glyphs and symbols on modern-day charts didn't exist in Constantine's time, the Greek letters Omega Rho symbolize the ascendant and translate into something akin to great God, great mind, great head, or great beginning. The Omega Rho symbol appears from the Chiro symbol if you start at the lowercase omega on the right-hand side and move counterclockwise to the top Rho letter for the combined Greek Omega Rho letters. And if you continue moving counterclockwise, the abbreviation AS appears for the ascendant. Constantine reinforces his ascendant message twice in case you missed the Omega Rho symbol. This counterclockwise motion correlates to the direction of the sun along the ecliptic in the Zodiac belt, representing the heavenly celestial signs. Therefore, the Roman sun god Sol Invictus is the overseer of the signs and ecliptic. The word Mithras on the Chiro symbol was rotated clockwise, representing the daily motion of the houses. Therefore, Mithras is the spirit overseer of our daily lives. Another anagram of Rosa and Oros is Saros. If you start from the S and go clockwise, it spells sorrow, and fold back to add another S on the end to spell the Greek word Saros. In Greek, Saros means repetition or to be repeated, and is the cycle to predict eclipses. By the 4th century BC, Chaldeans and Babylonians recognized that eclipses occurred in a sequence of 223 lunar months from new moon to new moon. This astute observation enabled the ancients to predict when the moon intersects the ecliptic path of the sun to cause solar and lunar eclipses. The Saros cycle as we know it today was coined in the Greek lexicons, or Greek dictionaries, circa 10th century AD. This is just another interlocking complexity of the sun, moon, and earth union for the binding of heaven and earth. Constantine is conveying that the Mithrans were able to accurately predict the occurrences of eclipses. The ascendant concept arises from the Greek word horoscopos, which translates into hour watcher, aura for hour, and scopos for watcher or guardian. The simple ancient horoscope charts are quite different than the complicated horoscope charts of today. Ancient charts were only numbered because the zodiac symbols were not invented yet, and the words were written out or abbreviated for the signs and planets. To construct an ancient horoscope chart from the Chiro symbol, one must simply draw a line from each letter that spells out Oros for hours or seasons, to make a diamond-shaped square inside the symbol, and a horoscope chart magically appears. This train of thought sets up the concept of aspects in horoscope charts, of angles from planet to planet, or to other celestial points of interest, with the most significant connecting angles being 60, 90, 120, and 180 degrees. Aspects are angles that are said to bring divine messages and express a variety of agreeable or challenging influences that could affect our lives. The Latin origin of the word aspectus is from spectare, meaning to see. The word aspect has many meanings tied to astrology because to see can mean behold, understand, perceive, experience, and in Latin, aspect can mean the horizon or a line of sight. Without sight or light brings the danger of darkness from what you cannot see. To construct an actual image of the sun rising over the eastern horizon, Constantine wishes you to rotate the Chi-Rho symbol 90 degrees counterclockwise. Then the Greek Rho letter represents the image of the sun rising over the eastern horizon to symbolize the ascendant. In part 1, the S on the Chiro symbol represented the staff of Asclepius. After the 90-degree rotation, the sideways S represents the sinuous yearly path of the sun along the ecliptic. A circle can be transcribed into a sine wave that is expressed in time. This NASA sky chart offers a more complete view of the sun's yearly sinuous path along the ecliptic with the constellations in the backdrop. What does all this mean? The constant motion of the sun on the ecliptic was considered perfection by the Romans and Greeks, and for this reason, their sun god Sol Invictus was given the honorific title of the unconquerable sun. The sun's constant motion is indomitable, invincible, unassailable, and incapable of becoming subdued, overcome, or vanquished. All is relative to the pure motion of the constant sun, and a lesser esteem is given to the variable motion of the wandering, slow-moving planets. Therefore, without hesitation, it can be concluded that Constantine practiced Hellenistic astrology as part of his Mithras beliefs. Why is any of this important? Originally, the distinction between light and dark was used as a measure for an agricultural calendar to predict seasons and weather throughout the year. The word calens in Latin for the first day of the month marked the first signs of the new crescent moon. The equinoxes and solstices initiated the horoscope's yearly time watcher seasons. When the light crosses the cardinal Aries and Libra signs of the equinox, the cosmic soul connects to the physical earth. The cardinal signs of Capricorn and Cancer of the solstices are the two great gateways for the cycles of life and death, and in turn, death and rebirth that unites the mysteries of the physical with the spiritual. The entrance happens as the light crosses the cardinal cusp of Cancer during the summer solstice, with the Earth tilted 23.44 degrees away from the North Pole, for the longest day of the year with the sun directly over the Tropic of Cancer. And the gateway exit is during the time of the winter solstice at the cusp of Cancer, with the sun directly over the Tropic of Cancer. The sun's rays are predominant, but planets and stars also shine rays of light as beacons, and are spiritual guides binding heaven and earth to illuminate life and influence our path through life. Impenetrable darkness does not exist, nor does it create. The binding of heaven and earth has been a reoccurring theme throughout my translations, using the Phoenician letter Vav, which means hook or tent stake, and has been expressed differently through the ages by different cultures. The Greek and Latin letters Vav are U, V, Y, and W, and even F from the Greek diagamma letter that was eventually dropped from their alphabet. The Hebrew letter I expresses Vav, and Tiwa is in the runes. All my previous references to Vav have culminated here for the understanding that Vav contains the powers to bind heaven and earth, that is connected to the astrological gateways of the cardinal signs of the equinoxes and solstices, for the joining of matter and spirit. In fact, stakes in astrology are the cusp of the 1st, 7th, 4th, and 10th houses associated to Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, pinning heaven and earth with the ascendant being the powerhouse of unions and influences. You may think this belief is far-fetched from an unfamiliar religion such as Mithras, but why do the masses today believe a virgin was given the capacity to bear a child with the support of an understanding and loving husband? The child's birth was then announced by the visit of 3 magi, or magicians, guided by a star, his childhood completely obscure, and his meteoric rise to fame scantily documented for a century. The English word faith comes from the Latin word fides, which means fidelity, honesty, and truth, and assumption originates from the word assume and is something accepted as true without proof, words used liberally by the Christians. In some of the book-killing reliefs, Mithras is looking over his shoulder at the ascendant. But in the future, we'll find out that Mithras is looking back in respect to the lineage of his ancestors. Although not a zodiac sign, Ophiuchus is the 13th constellation that is located on the ecliptic. Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, represents Asclepius, the god of medicine and the doctor of healing. To reinforce the connection between Mithras, astrology, and Asclepius, the ancient Greek word iotros for healer or doctor appears from the Chi-Rho Symbol. In medical astrology, body parts are affiliated with the signs, and certain aspects are thought to influence physical health, especially the circumstances of the ascendant sign in the first house. The Greek word health means whole, and well and hale have the meaning of strong and healthy, with the deeper dimension of holy. After death, Asclepius became even more renowned as a healer. Many say the Greek name Asclepius means to cut open. The Greek word anatome means to cut up, or more exactly to dissect, and the following phrase that I'm not going to attempt to even pronounce means to cut open. The Latin word to cut is caedere, and the following phrase that I'm not going to attempt to even pronounce means to cut open. None of these words even come close to the spelling or sound of the name Asclepius. So let's dissect the name of Asclepius into a mixture of Latin and Greek meanings. As we know, ASC is the abbreviation for the ascendant on the horoscope charts, and it's from the Latin word ascendere, meaning to ascend or rise. The Greek word lep from lepsis means to grasp or seize, and the suffix isu is indicating possession. Thus the name Asclepius is a loose translation for to grasp the ascendant, to own, or to seize the ascendant. It appears the planets are identified in the Chi-Rho symbol as well. Jupiter, king of the gods in Roman mythology, and the planet of faraway horizons, is represented by the letter I running vertically down the center of the Chi-Rho symbol. In Constantine's time, the letter J didn't exist in the Latin alphabet, and the Romans spelled Jupiter with an I and two P's for Jupiter. Jupiter is a renaissance of the old sky god Deus. Deus Pater was the first all-father of the gods, and Jupiter Pater was the sky god, and another moniker is Jovis Pater, Father Jove. Romans revered Jupiter and his Greek counterpart Zeus. Therefore, the center I of the Chi-Rho symbol represents the planet Jupiter. M is for the planet Mercury that is represented at the ascendant, and in fact, in Hellenistic astrology, the ascendant is connected to Mercury. The V-looking A for the horns of the bull represents Venus, located opposite the ascendant, and in fact, Venus rules Libra. Mars is at the bottom of the chart, and the word appears out of the Chiro symbol. Mars is the down-facing sword. The warrior is surrendered to darkness in the underworld to seek the truth of light. S is for Saturn, located at the top of the chart, embracing the meaning of its name to sow as the agricultural planet ruled by the Greek god Cronus, god of time, fertility, and harvest. And in fact, Saturn rules Capricorn. The Earth is simply symbolized by the encompassing circle. And if you put all this together, the Greek cross inside a circle is actually the symbol that represents Earth. Moreover, the ancient symbol for Earth is the circle with the Greek or cardinal cross inside of it. So what letter represents the moon? The only letter left is X for Chi, or the Phoenician letter Ta for T, representing the Greek letter Tau, which means life. Cycles of the moon brings the spiritual connections of wisdom, birth, death, resurrection, immortality, and eternity. It's a constant as in the sun's nuclear fusion and its seasonal orbits. However, the closeness of the constant moon intimately dictates our biological clocks for the rhythms of life on Earth. The letter M signifies Mercury and is identified with the ascendant, or at least a ruling component of the first house. M is the Phoenician letter Mem, which means water. So what does water have to do with Mercury? The answer is astounding. Planet Mercury's ancient name was Hydrogerum, which literally means water silver. The Roman god Mercury in mythology traverses between the realms of heaven and earth and life and death, and interestingly enough is honored as the god of sleep and rules over wealth, good fortune, commerce, fertility, and thievery. Morpheus is the god of dreams, and the Roman poet Ovid wrote that the god Mercury carried Morpheus's dreams from the valley of Salmus to sleeping humans. Dream curatives were a source of divination, and those in the Greco-Roman Empire made pilgrimages to Asclepius's temples to sleep in small cubicles to dream of omens that would then be interpreted for cures with the help of the gods and the priests. Evidently, Asclepius's practices were quite effective, for his popularity rose to great heights. Asclepius is said to have acquired the ability to bring the dead back to life. The caduceus not only symbolizes the mythological god Mercury, but also represents the element Mercury known as Azoth to the ancient alchemists. In alchemy, elemental Mercury and its spiritual essence was believed to be involved in the transformation of all things, embodied by the Greek letters Alpha and Omega, and in Latin the two letters A and Z, from the corrupt Arabic-based word Azoth. Azoth was believed to be the cosmic life force, universal remedy, catalyst, philosopher's stone, elixir of life, and the ultimate goal of alchemical transformations. It appears that this may reveal the collective use of the Greek Alpha and Omega, and the custom of using the first two letters of a word for its abbreviation. The Greek word azo means without life, and the th suffix reinforces the condition of theta, which symbolizes death. However, the Latin name argentium vivium means silver that which is alive. Regardless of dead or alive, the reaction of elemental mercury with nitric acid forms red snake-like vapors over its surface, while producing mercuric oxide crystals as a precipitate. The multiple liquid and solid states manifested during this reaction brought about the belief that Mercury has the ability to traverse varied realms, and most likely is the reason for this god's association with snakes. Mercury's alchemical transformational powers is heightened by its ability to dissolve gold, depicted in art by the lion devouring the sun. The Kabbalah calls it the ultimate substance. It is said of Azoth that his fire becomes solar fire and his water becomes lunar water in our universe. Later in this video, a very similar comparison will be quoted from the writings of Zoroastrianism. Intriguingly, NASA contends that the sun's solar winds delivers hydrogen to the lunar surface, causing a chemical reaction with the oxygen-bearing rocks to produce water. The Holy Trinity relationship between the ascendant sun and moon is life, and in Hellenistic astrology it's called the ladder of fortune, which encompasses the prosperity of health, life, and soul, and is accompanied by the ladder spirit, which is what you do with what you're given. The astrological symbol for the ladder of fortune is the Phoenician letter tet of a circle with an X inside it. These Arabic lots or parts are beneficial points on the horoscope chart calculated from simple addition and subtractions of the degrees between the sun, the ascendant hook to the earth, and the moon. Eclipses are the alignment of these three celestial bodies Xing out the earth or the moon from the sun. Even today, Xing means crossing a boundary, or to X out something means it disappears. Lots of fortune is the true origin of the Wheel of Fortune. Could it be the reason the Wheel of Fortune card in Tarot represents the Roman numeral X for 10? From the exercise of identifying planets from the Chi-Rho symbol, the Earth translated into the letter O. With this in mind, two more interesting words appear from the Chi-Rho symbol. Only a handful of anagrams appeared from this collection of letters, but these two words jumped out at me, ratios and satori. In Latin, ratio has many meanings: reckon, reason, judgment, manner, and method. And the Greek equivalent is the word logos for reason, principles, philosophy, doctrines, and speech. A deeper look into these meanings reveals a providence of divine reasoning, a cosmic life-giving force hidden within all things, a godly, eternal, and unchanging truth present from the time of creation that is available to every individual who seeks it. Logos is thoughts, verbally expressed by human souls, and is the Word of God expressed by the divine. Logos is just what the Latin word ratio means to us today: proportions, a comparison relative to the whole, which in this case is the moon. The phases of the moon always compare to its whole and have the aspect of reckoning, computing, tallying, and keeping count. The moon is imposing judgment proportioned against the divine unwavering truth. Satori is the Buddhist concept of sudden enlightenment, an awakening of understanding on a deep and lasting level. Could this be the reason for Sol Invictus casting a ray of light to Mithras in the bull-killing reliefs? But wait, we're talking about Greeks and Romans knowing Buddhist and Hindu beliefs? Their votive stupas, used for meditation and prayer, are very similar to the Asclepian tunnels with small cubicles for patients to stay the night, to have dreams and visions that were used to facilitate diagnoses of their malaises. And in fact, the Latin word for cubicles is cubiculum, comes from cubere, to lie down or to lie asleep. In 270 BC, Indian Emperor Ashoka ascended the throne and sent emissaries to all 4 points of the compass, and reportedly their messages were favorably received in the West. Beginning circa 200 BC, the Silk Road linking China to the West not only traded material goods but spiritual practices. The first Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus had documented contact with India circa 20 BC. The Indians occupied some countries that were situated along the Indus River, which formerly belonged to the Persians who practiced Zoroastrianism. In retrospect, it's interesting to note that the two Phoenician letters Ta and Tet are used as the keys for my Chi-Rho symbol translations, because the Greek letter Tau for T symbolizes life, and the Greek letter Theta for TH symbolizes death. However, the Phoenician letter Ta means mark, and Tet means wheel. Putting this together infers that the ascendant is the mark on a wheel. The Persian word Mitra is spelled with only a T, and the Romans spelled it with a TH and an S at the end. At times, the Greek letter theta for death is used in the spelling of Mithras, indicating Mithras is the polarity and duality of life and death, under the metaphor of light and dark. To the ancients, the turning of the heavenly wheels of the earth's annual journey around the sun corresponds to seasonal times of growing and fallowing, which determine feast or famine, and life or death. When a new solar year begins during the winter solstice, the sun pauses before reversing its course. In fact, the word solstice is Latin for the words sol for sun and sisto for halt or stand still. In the northern hemisphere, around December 22nd is when the sun reaches its farthest and lowest point in its journey and stops in place before reversing direction. From December 17th to the 23rd, the Romans were busy partying for their Saturnalian celebration, which was more or less their Christmas, to honor their agricultural god Saturn, who fathered the Romans' main god Jupiter. Then approximately 3 days later, on December 25th, the sun begins moving north with daylight increasing. On December 25th, 274 AD, Roman Emperor Aurelian, who called himself the Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world, declared that day Sol Invictus's birthday, and decreed Sol Invictus as an official Roman religion, which was more or less their New Year's. They say the winter solstice fell on December 25th in the Roman calendar. Mithras' birthday was also believed to be December 25th. While the Christians were preparing for Christmas, the Persians were celebrating the birth and rebirth of the sun on December 21st, the eve of the winter solstice. Mer, the god of love and power from the sun, alternately known as Persian Mitra, had his celebration on the winter solstices as early as 5000 BC. After the party is over, the sun dips under the horizon and starts his perilous journey through the cavernous malevolence of the underworld, through the dark night of the soul, with hopes of entering the world of light unscathed. This is where Roman Mithras gives Sol Invictus salvation. The duality of death and resurrection play out during this hiatus of Sol Invictus's apparent death. This 3-day pause is evidently broken by Mithras' resurrection of the sun from the dead, and protecting Sol Invictus through the underworld for the sun to rise again over the horizon. The Latin word salva means saved, being protected from harm, and in this case against the darkness of evil. In Persian, Darbe Mer means the door of love, peace, justice, and it represents the Cancer-Capricorn gateways in Hellenistic astrology, of the physical merging with the spiritual. In essence, it's connecting the unconscious to the conscious realms and back. This is a perfect balance of symmetry, as above, so below, but it's in reference to Earth's eastern horizon. It is written that Persian Mitra illuminates the earth at night, ever watchful, and rides through the heavens with a team of 4 white horses that emerges at dawn over the eastern horizon. Some say in 273 AD, a year after Emperor Aurelian's birthday decree, the Christian Church deemed December 25th Jesus' birthday. Some say Pope Julius I, circa 336 AD, initialized a Christianized version of the Roman solar festival. A year before that, the First Council of Nicaea was summoned by Emperor Constantine to smooth over some church discrepancies, and 336 AD was the year Constantine declared the 25th of December the yearly holiday of Christmas and the birth of Jesus. In the book of Luke 2:18-14, it states the shepherds were tending their flock at night when Jesus was born, indicating Jesus was born in the spring at the time of the birthing of the lambs. Whatever the case, Jesus' story of resurrection is chronicled in the Apostles' Creed. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to hell. The 3rd day he rose from the dead. He ascended to heaven. This Christian version of Jesus' demise is incredibly similar to the astrological beliefs of death and rebirth of Sol Invictus in the Mithras religion. In my calculations, it wasn't 3 days or 72 hours for Sol Invictus' death and rebirth, but 2.5 days or 60 hours. The base 60 is for timekeeping that originated from the Babylonian number system, for 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. So why not 60 hours to procure a twice-a-year seasonal shift of the solstices? Let's take a look at what's going on at the time of the winter solstice and on Sol Invictus' birthday. This first horoscope chart is in Rome, Italy, on December 22nd, 274 AD at noon, with the sun at the apex above the horizon, heading to dip down into the underworld. This second horoscope chart is 60 hours later at midnight, with the sun below the horizon where Mithras is in control of the night and the underworld. The ascendant arising sign is in contractual Libra, and Mithras is resurrecting Sol Invictus from the dead to rise again over the horizon for another day. It's interesting to note that the sun is almost conjunct with Mars at this time. Sacrifice means to make something holy. Mithras' sacrifice of the highly esteemed bull signifies an offering that makes the bull holy. It was a consecratory rite of surrender and destruction of the bull in devotion to something higher than self. The word sacrifice means holy creation and comes from the Latin word sacra, meaning sacred or holy, and farcere, meaning the act of doing, making, or creating, as well as has the meaning of birth, childbirth, and creation. Sacrifice always requires the aspect of surrender. Covenant with a god means to make a treaty or a pact with divinity. Mithras is predicated on contracts, oaths, promises, and commitments. It's quid pro quo, something for something, and in this case, the sacrifice frees you from your indiscretion and sins for a purification and rebirth. This is just exhibiting the basic 5 steps of grief. The Mithrans were out of their denial and anger stages regarding the frailties of human life and went into the bargaining stage to avoid the depression step, thus dropping them right at the front doorstep of accepting what is. The ancient Greek word apotelismatic is the effect of the stars on human destiny with the aspect of fulfillment. There are only a few paths to go in life. You are given free will to choose the path with a conscience, to hopefully discern what is right and wrong. The coup de grace of your ultimate consequences from your actions leads you to your eternal destination. Every living being in this world is fated to die. However, destiny has a fated accountability attached to it. You can choose the filthy and unjust path and just simply die and perhaps be cast into one of Dante's undesirable circles, or you can choose righteous truth and holiness and live in immortality. Does Constantine point this out in his Chiro messages? Perhaps. The word for love in Latin is amor, and the word for death is mors. So if the circle for the earth represents an O, then the words amor and mors appears out of the Chi-Rho symbol. Mithras is love. Mithras is the overseer of your earthly decisions, while Sol Invictus is the arbitrator on the celestial level. It appears Constantine is saying that it's your choice between eternal love or permanent death. Instead of my earlier translation of Constantine's message, "With this sign you shall seek," now the originally accepted translation, "With this sign you will conquer," applies. This word switch is prophetic in its own right. Mithras is not the sun, the moon, or a star. He is the spirit of divine light, radiant essence binding heaven and earth. The sun god Sol Invictus is the divine mind, the pure mind of God. Mithras is the gift of divine power from Sol Invictus's blessed mind. In many of the bull-killing scenes, a ray of light from Sol Invictus reaches down and touches Mithras. This is symbolic of the passing of this divine power. In a coming-up video, it'll be discovered the passing of this light of divine power kills as well as resurrects. Mithras is the nexus of spiritual messages that flows through our rivers of passions and our lakes of dreams and desires. Mithras does not personify the moon, but works through the moon's intimate connection to humans and our emotions that govern our everyday lives. The covenant of truth and wisdom honors the victory of light over darkness, which is the whole theme of Hellenistic astrology. From darkness leads us on to light, celebrates the true victory of light over darkness. The moon symbolizes the memory of the past, of the spiritual twinning of the shadowy Persian Zoroastrian spirit entities, Ahura Mazda of goodness and Ahriman of evil. Numina is the Latin word for such divine presence. The Zoroastrian elements of worship consisted of the heat of fire of the victorious sun and good waters of the glorious moon. At the glimmering of this ancient worship, Taurus the bull was the constellation on the horizon at sunrise. The bull ushered in the ascendant. The Mithras bull-killing scene is borrowed from the Zoroastrian creation story for the repopulating of the world from the soul of the primordial bovine. The protector moon god rescues the Mithras, the bull's seeds, and from these seeds spring all the plants and animals of the world. The Persian Mithra religion merged with a number of cultures as it traveled west to the borders of the Greco-Roman Empire, to be taken into the Roman pantheon as Mithras and given a Greek and Roman flavor. The new moon's monthly conjunction of the sun is a seed being sown for the beginning of a new cycle. Astrology is all about cycles of the wheels, planets, and partnerships. This Mithras 1st century AD Greek gold plate displays the duality themes of astrology, with the sun surrounded by a crescent moon, horses going in the primary and secondary motions, and the significant X for life between spoked chariot wheels. It's so amazing that the simple recognition of the word Rosa on a 1700-year-old symbol bloomed like a rose to bring light to so many concepts that are fluidly moving through mercurial states. The Chi-Rho symbol now brings new meaning to our understanding of Hellenistic astrology. In this epilogue, I'll reach back before Constantine's Chiro vision. In 310 AD, 2 years before his epic vision, it was reported in a speech that Constantine had turned off the road to visit the shrine of Apollo Granus, a temple considered the most beautiful in the world. Granus was a Celtic sun god identified with Apollo, that was associated with healing, spas, and thermal hot springs. Evidently, Constantine recognized his own likeness in the place of Granus's visage, and realized he, Constantine, is whom the divine bards had prophesied, who would take over the dominion of the world. In his vision, the goddess Victory offered him wreaths and promised him rule for 30 years, for he saw the Roman numerals XXX signifying the number 30. However, this supposed vision, once reported, went unnoticed. Therefore, a second well-thought-through vision was in order. And instead of a pagan-to-pagan message, it was a pagan-to-Christian vision, which was then noticed after the drama of his unexpected victory against Maxentius to solidify his dominion. With the backing of the Christians as well as his loyal pagans, Constantine changed the course of religious history. His baptism, that was romanticized and dramatized in stories and paintings, occurred on his deathbed in 337 AD, which makes one wonder if he was even conscious. After his vision, paganism coexisted with Christianity, but not peacefully. Sadly, the violence and intolerance by the Christians abolished Constantine's idea of a unified empire for a golden age. Mithras rivaled Christianity, but bizarrely the so-called meek religion called Christianity, that teaches brotherhood and peace, destroyed pagan temples, burned books, and outlawed ancient rituals punishable by death, thus plunging much of Europe into an era of intolerance, illiteracy, and ignorance. Christianity catapulted humankind into the Dark Ages that escalated into the cruelty of the Holy Inquisition. The Mithras religion became even more secretive and went underground. It appears inadvertently Constantine was very influential in setting the world stage for the foundation of Christianity. As with anything in life, good intentions often generate unexpected results. Supernatural beliefs brings teamwork and synergy into man's existence, until corrupt power and privilege eclipses the untarnished good into profane evil. The Chi-Rho symbol, called a Krestos, used to mark an important passage in the margin of a book, was transformed into Christos for Christ. Constantine relegated the belief of Jesus to a historical footnote. However, it appears he respected the worship of religions, promoting well-being regardless of the belief. It appears to me the Romans and Greeks believed in two gods that was symbolized by Alpha and Omega. The Alpha god watched over everyday affairs, rewarding you for good deeds and punishing you for evil machinations. A god honored by temples and altars to conduct elaborate religious rituals on earth. This is represented by the central core of houses or temples on the horoscope chart. The erratic motion of the planet's influence on humankind is in existence under the whims of the gods. Mithras is the alpha guardian of our daily lives, working against the malevolent whims of such influences. Omega means great, and is the great God who is the existential creator devoid of religion, permeated with truth, which is the incorruptible, unconquerable, and forever constant Sol Invictus. Omega Sol Invictus is just not personified as the sun, but is the sun, creator and architect of the universe, honored for his life-giving creations that are represented by the gods, creatures, and animals of the Zodiac. Alexander the Great enmeshed Persia, India, and western Grecian colonies in his conquests, and fought to the doorstep of Arabia, which started the Hellenistic era that caused a great migration of culture and religious diffusion of astrological studies and beliefs. The deep divide between rational thinking and spiritual thoughts lost sight of the magic of mystical visions. However, Constantine was more than willing to offer a mystical vision in the form of the Chi-Rho Symbol, to unify his authority over the pagans and Christians, to stop the schisms between warring factions, for him to run his empire. Boundaries were set, and so was the stage. To Constantine, what fun is it to have secrets if you can't have secrets hiding right in front of everyone's eyes, or at least leave the messages for posterity? Mithras is about love and well-being of well-to-be of your health, happiness, and prosperity, the quality of life to make it worth living a righteous life. The immense wisdom of our ancestors and the synchronicity of energy flow with nature must be relearned by the neophyte modern humans. Cloistered away from nature and out of touch, we've lost sight of our instincts and common sense. This coronavirus era is now having each individual questioning their values against learned dogmas. It's time to call what doesn't work for healthier and happier lives, that doesn't gauge success by career achievements or dominion over others, but by the force of love for and from those around us, regardless of gender, creed, or color. Constantine was a prophet before his time, but unfortunately it just wasn't the time for the calm demeanor of the unconquerable sun. For as above, so below, as within, so without. The spring equinox is the discovery of consciousness, and the summer solstice is the celebration of light reaching our souls for enlightenment. Constantine wants you to ask yourself if you're ready to live your truths in peace. Before I go, I'd like to present a few brief comparisons of the Chiro symbol messages with my earlier Oak Island Prophesy series findings. For those unfamiliar, Oak Island is a small island off Nova Scotia, Canada, where many have sought a buried treasure. A stone slab containing 2 lines of symbol groups translates into Middle English words, and the Chiro messages in Greek and Latin have very similar messages. The Alpha and Omega groups, the first and last groups on the stone, are the guideposts. The Alpha messages of the first symbol group translate into the words ord, word, and sword. The 2 V's are the ancient Semitic consonant spelling of Vav for the binding of heaven and earth. As you will see, the VV or W has multiple uses in the Oak Island Code. The Latin word cuspus or cusp for the divisions on the horoscope charts means point, sharp point, spear, stake, source, or beginning. And the Middle English word ord means pretty much the same. Point, pointed end, point of a weapon, or the beginning. The English dictionary today defines cusp as a point of transition between 2 states. Ord represents the securing of the astrological states of the 1st, 7th, 4th, and 10th houses, with points of swords binding heaven and earth. A clue to sword was the Z-looking S, which is the Phoenician letter Zayan for sword, and is considered the weapon of spirit. The English letter-looking I for Zayan became the Greek letter zeta for Z, the lightning bolt of spirit to matter. Next is word, which equates to the words ratios in Latin and logos in Greek, for it's the word of God's divine reasoning, and our word or promise or oath to Mithras from this divine reasoning. The moon's role in judgment proportioned from the divine unwavering truth. The Roman numeral V is 5, and the 2 V's represents the number 55. Then word becomes 55 ord, for 55 origin or beginning, which is the center of an imaginary labyrinth superimposed over the island in a sequence of harmonic numbers of 55, 110, 220, and so on, from numbers that kept appearing in my calculations. The clues to the labyrinth is on the satellite stone displaying the symbol for a seat of a labyrinth, a Greek cross surrounded by 4 dots. Poetically, the translation instructs you to metaphorically walk the sacred space of a labyrinth to a possible location of interest on Oak Island. Many church grounds, roadsides, courtyards contain labyrinths for those who are unable to journey to the Holy Land. Interestingly enough, 55 in degrees marks a bearing with a distance of 2,610 miles that takes you to the doorstep of St. Patrick's Church next to the hill of Tara in Ireland, where the Stone of Destiny was used for the inauguration of kings. The numbers to a possible location of interest on Oak Island was found 5 different ways in my translation. If the number 55 for the 2 V's is used, the Greek value for the word sword adds up to 360, and the word Mithras also adds up to 360 to represent the 360 degrees of the Great Circle. The backwards percent sign translated into the letter O and was originally interpreted as the navigational Great Circle, with the center line representing the equator and small circles depicting the latitudes. The Great Circle is used to calculate the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere, but now it appears it has an astrological meaning, for the words of a Greek astronomer describe the zodiac as 3 circles encompassing the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, and the center circle being Heliakos, being the sun's path on the ecliptic. The next symbol is an angular slash across the circle in the opposite direction of the backwards percent sign, and was translated as the letter R. Originally, this was interpreted as the radius of a circle. These 2 oppositely angled lines on these symbols represent the angles of light and dark cast on the earth during solstices. The letters O and R in English is omega and rho in Greek, which is the symbol for the ascendant. Lastly, the Greek letter delta for D symbolizes change and is the code writer's way of saying the angle of the earth changes throughout the year to mark the solstices. Now let's move on to the last symbol group for the omega messages. To keep the message in context, the last 2 symbol groups convey the message King Betray in Middle English. King is in the form of RI, which is the Latin abbreviation for Rex Imperator. The Middle English word betray is intentionally missing the first I in the spelling of betray. The first 2 symbols of betray are Latin and Greek crosses that translate into the letters BT with an R behind them, which was originally interpreted as the abbreviation for brothers. However, the 2 crosses could symbolically represent Hellenzeon for the Hellenistic period of Greek-speaking Romans. After the 2 crosses, the word ray in Middle English appears, signifying the radius of a circle, wheel, spokes of a wheel, or a beam of light. The wheel translation of ray could be referring to the zodiac wheel, or the word ray could be indicating the narrow beam of light cast by Sol Invictus down to Mithras in the bull-killing reliefs. This small stone outline triangle found on Oak Island was surveyed in 1963. The upper left angle is 23 degrees and 26 minutes, and when converted from degrees and minutes to simple decimal degrees, it equals 23.43 degrees for the axial tilt of the Earth. If you borrow the VV from sword, which is synonymous with UU at the time, and apply it to a mirror image construction from the symbol group below, the name Ilium Ulas appears in Gaelic. William Wallace is known today as Braveheart. Wallace disappeared from 1300 to 1302. After his reappearance, he was captured, tortured, and killed by King Edward I of England. The story of how he possibly made it to Oak Island is quite interesting. This is new Oak Island information because I just recently figured this out. If you read the word betray backwards, the code tells you that one king and one who aspired to become king betrayed Wallace. Let's start with the last three letters EIA at the end of betray. King Edward, who tortured William Wallace to death, was born in Westminster Palace in June of 1239 AD, crowned in Westminster Abbey in 1274, and buried there in 1307. EIA, or I, was an early medieval manor less than a mile west of Westminster Palace and became the site of Westminster Abbey, which was built from 1045 to 1050 AD. The palace is a mere 0.67 miles, or 3,536 feet from the abbey. Wallace's first message is King Edward had a hand in his betrayal, which is no surprise because Wallace had been a thorn in Edward's keister since his guardianship during the fight for independence of Scotland. Now let's read the next three letters backwards, RTB, which is the initials for Robert the Bruce. Wallace was executed in August of 1305, and Robert the Bruce became King of Scots in March of 1306 until his death in 1329. The message here is that Robert the Bruce betrayed his own people and conspired with King Edward I to kill Wallace. The movie Braveheart might have been right about one thing. It appears Robert the Bruce betrayed Wallace. If you follow the movements of Robert the Bruce after he became king, you'll see he went up the backbone of Scotland ravaging and searching for something, and then went to wreak havoc in Ireland. However, it was too late, for whatever he was looking for was long gone. Wallace's famous two-handed sword has never been found, although a cobbled-together sword from parts of that era is on display as his sword. Could the sword translation on the stone be referring to his legendary sword? All this information and much more is in my Oak Island Prophesy series videos. And don't miss my Oak Island Money Pit Explained video, which proves I paid attention during my undergraduate years in college. My next video will reveal who Mithras is, if you haven't already figured that out. And most importantly, I'll outline the facts why he became Mithras. I'd like to thank my support crew and advertising team that made this video possible, who thinks they're direly underpaid. If you like this video, please subscribe and ring the bell, like, share, and comment to support my channel. I wish you acceptance, peace, and happiness.